Tokenization just isn't moving assets on chain. This is us rewiring the financial system as a whole. I don't think people realize just how big of a use case this actually is or what this enables. We go and look at one of the most recent events happening right now. This is with some pretty big names from finance, like the DTCC, for an example. We also have major players from crypto as well. But we have here private markets are entering a new phase. As tokenization moves from theory to practice, capital market infrastructure is evolving, offering greater transparency, fractional access, and the potential for real secondary liquidity. These topics were discussed on a panel featuring all of these players, including, of course, yes, the DTCC. Now, to build on top of this, we also have over here, tokenization does not change the nature of an asset. It just gives better rails for the asset. This is from Securitize's CEO, Carlos Domingo, making it clear that tokenization is not magic. It is infrastructure. The panel combined players from custody, banking, layer 1, and tokenization to discuss banking on blockchain, institutional lending, tokenized assets, and the evolution of capital markets. And yeah, listen, when we think about what's happening here, this is the new rails. Like, this is the new financial system. Carlos is 100% correct here. This isn't just bringing an asset on chain. No, this is much bigger than that. Because once you have that asset on chain, you now have access to better rails. They are digital rails that are extremely efficient, extremely fast, secure, low cost, and not to mention, they're interoperable with so many additional networks. That's only being improved on. We are truly at the point of evolution. This is the evolution of every single asset class, every single financial asset. We are at that defining moment for the financial system to officially be upgraded. Now, on top of that, tokenization continues to expand. Another day, another all-time high. RWA total value is now at $21 billion. 5 straight years of growth, beating the usual crypto cycle. RWA momentum feels unstoppable. And that's because it is. Tokenization is still just beginning. We're talking about $21 billion. If this sounds like a lot, it's not. We're just at the beginning phases of tokenization. We've talked about the total addressable market. It's not in just the single digit trillions. It's not in the double digit trillions. It's not even in the triple digit trillions. It's in the quadrillions of dollars. This is much bigger than what anyone believes. And I don't think that people understand the scale of this use case. And I don't think that they're going to understand the scale of this use case until it finally hits these networks. Now, at the same exact time, I want to go over here to the KYC letter because this is one of the major assets being tokenized. Stocks. They are quietly exploding on chain. Trade volumes of tokenized public stocks are now at a record high of 800 million per month. As a result, liquidity in tokenized assets is rapidly expanding. Jupiter Exchange, the world's largest on-chain platform, is now seeing close to 200 million in monthly volume in these assets. Robinhood has described tokenized assets as a freight train coming to all major markets. This comes just 2 months after the Nasdaq's crypto chief said they are moving as fast as they can to get SEC approval for trading tokenized stocks. TradFi assets are moving on chain at a historic pace. Yes, because this is the new system. This is the new rails. We've been hearing for years now of a defining moment for crypto where the traditional world of finance finally begins to embrace the technology here. And it's happening right now. The value on chain for tokenized assets is just a small taste of what's to come because, again, these big players are now realizing the power here. Now, on top of that, we go back over here to Reese Merrick. Legacy systems are being rewired. This is from Reese Merrick. This is the managing director of Middle East and Africa at Ripple. We are starting to see a major shift here. Every single big player, BNY Global, Swift, the DTCC, they are now all moving on chain. They are all focused on chain. Brad Garlinghouse also saying in his post from January 9th, the main thing that we're looking at here is building and using crypto infrastructure, updating our global financial plumbing, technically the system, and rethinking legacy systems. None of this happens overnight. At Ripple, we're going to continue taking the long view of what crypto-based assets like XRP and ROUSD can do rather than chasing cycles and hype. And that's right. We're seeing the big shift here. Crypto is evolving. TradFi players are now realizing what crypto is capable of doing. Franklin Templeton, Jenny Johnson, CEO, blockchain is going to be the infrastructure of financial services. There is no question in my mind on that. These are the types of announcements you need to lock in on. I don't think that I need to tell you guys time and time again how important it is to listen to these institutional players and what they're telling you to do and what they're telling you, about what's coming. They're telling you to prepare for this. They're already, expressing what's happening here. The infrastructure for financial services is blockchain. We have yet to see it plug and played into the system yet, because the biggest obstacle still is clarity. We don't have clarity yet, but it is being worked on, and hopefully we can, change the big issues with the recent bill. But in my opinion, now is the best time to be locked in on what's happening here. The actual financial system, the entire financial system as a whole, is moving to on-chain. And we have over here from Jenny Johnson discussing the two-way crossover happening between the worlds of DeFi and TradFi. Listen closely to this.
Jenny, let's dig into what products do customers really want? Is it ETFs? What has been successful? And have you guys tried anything that wasn't a success?
If you tended to be on the traditional side, you tend to be leveraging the technology for its efficiencies and rolling out, more of kind of your traditional assets. And so the area, where do we think this goes? Well, we think the wallets, you just look at some of the exchanges. I mean, Binance has 270 million wallets. Coinbase has over 100 million wallets. I mean, there's actually a vast amount of distribution that has happened. And probably most of those wallets are holding Jeremy's USDC. And yet they don't have really traditional products. And so true diversification, they're going to want to be able to have traditional products. And so we think we can bring that into those wallets. And then honestly, what's happening is traditional sort of wealth managers are now talking to us about, hey, maybe we should look at your wallet infrastructure because we have enough clients that are interested in investing in both the crypto world as well as the traditional world. But these two have really run very parallel, and you're just now starting to see them cross over.
So yeah, we're just at the beginning phase of this. We're just starting to see them shift into the crypto space. I think everyone needs to hear this because they think that we have been starting to see this for years. No, we're just at the beginning of this. Trust me, I have been in this space for a very long time. And what we are starting to see here, this is completely different than the last 2 years. Institutional players are now lining up, trying to lock in on specific networks. Franklin Templeton, for an example, they're locked in on the XRP ledger. They're also locked in on Stellar. If we go over here, this post from Franklin Templeton still lives in my mind because, again, although it's a ad for their ETF product, this is from their head of digital assets. XRP Ledger is a payments-first blockchain enabling real-time, low-cost settlement and cross-border transaction efficiency. Within a diversified digital portfolio, we view XRP Ledger's native token XRP as a foundational building block given its market cap significance. Because again, it really is. When we think about what's happening here, when we think about the evolution of finance, payments, transactions, the XRP Ledger and XRP, they are a major network and asset to put in the spotlight because the value behind them for value movement and the ease at which you can transact between any two assets of value. That is so disruptive. It's so significant. That alone, when we think about the world in which we're headed towards, which is a fully tokenized on-chain digital financial system, XRP's efficiencies and the power behind it are infinite. And I've said this so many times. That's what makes XRP so special when we are thinking about this world in which we're entering. And the DTCC just confirmed exactly just that. Tokenization isn't an upgrade, it's a rewiring of market infrastructure. The hard part, building authority and compliance into trust minimized systems. This is Dan Doney from the DTCC breaking down what this shift actually means. Check it out.
Blockchain offers a really different substrate to track ownership record. In other words, blockchain's specialty is its ability to form a consensus record of ownership in near real time at global scale. What this means is parties who are using a blockchain network all get the same ground truth at the same time. Well, this really offers fundamental advantages over legacy practices where the back offices of financial institutions have to do enormous work, even within banks, let alone across banks, in order to get all of the records to agree regarding ownership.
So yeah, I mean, listen, when we think about what's really happening here, I mean, every big player is on board. Every big player is on board. Every asset class, every asset in general. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's stocks, it doesn't matter if it's bonds, it doesn't matter if it's real estate. Everything will move on chain. When you have names like the DTCC talking about how this is a rewiring of the entire infrastructure, and you listen to Franklin Templeton talking about essentially the same exact thing, we listen to what Brad and all of the Ripple employees have been telling us for years as well, we're really starting to see that big picture unfold. This is the internet of value. And let's go back to what SEC Chairman Paul Atkins told us. This is from Black Swan Capitalist. The SEC Chairman says tokenization of all assets and markets is coming, faster than most realize. The new Bretton Woods reset is approaching, and XRP will be the backbone for settlement. The window of opportunity to position yourself is closing fast. Now, I will say, I don't think that this window of opportunity is closing extremely fast. It's really all, it depends on how long you think that window of opportunity is in terms of, if it's short or long. I would argue we probably have about 2 years. We probably have about 2 years until we start to see this really kick into overdrive and the value of almost every utility-based project goes crazy. So again, I do think that the window is closing. It's just not as fast as what most people are, really pushing for urgency. But listen closely to what Paul Atkins did say.
Tokenization is the idea of using then smart contracts or tokens on chain to be able to, that represent, say, an underlying security. And so then that tokenized security is a security and would be subject to SEC rules by law. But the idea is that if it's on chain, on a blockchain, then there's much more transparency as to where it is. Right now, there's a bit of opacity as to, who owns what and where the company usually doesn't even know where its who its shareholders are and where the shareholders reside, where the shares reside. So tokenization has the benefit of potentially having, instead of T+1 now trade date +1 for clearance and settlement, the prospect of maybe T0. Now, depending on the instrument, and we have to think about netting and all sorts of other things with respect to some instruments, but in principle, the idea of on-chain delivery versus payment and receipt versus payment, DVP, RVP on-chain, is a prospect of de-risking the markets, making them much more transparent and then sure as far as clearance and settlement, because it's always that the gap between clearance and settlement and then delivery and payment is the the real introduces risk into the system.
Do you expect this is where financial services is going? Are the major banks and the brokers out there today moving increasingly toward tokenization?
Oh, absolutely. And it's the way the world will be, here in the, maybe not even in 10 years, maybe even a lot less time, maybe a couple of years from now. So I think that all of this modernization of the markets, I think, is good. And the trouble that we've seen here over the past few years is that, the SEC, unlike historically, it never was necessarily at the vanguard of pushing new innovations. It was always, a little bit behind the market, of course. But here recently, it's been almost standing athwart the marketplace, and as it's, as all these new innovations were coming about. So that's no more. We're actually embracing it, and I believe that we need to be embracing it to keep the United States at the forefront. As far as cryptocurrencies and whatnot, there were really only 2 countries in the world here in the last few years that were working to make cryptocurrencies illegal, and that was Communist China and the U.S. through the SEC. So that's changed. It's a new day now, and so we want to embrace this new technology.
So yeah, listen, when we are hearing these conversations happen, with regulations right now, it's so questionable on if we're going to see a lot of the issues alleviated. I'm hoping that we can, by just becoming a community and fighting back against these, just insane overreach bills with these major banks pulling the strings. But the main thing that I am focused on here is that, we are in the evolution of the entire financial system. I'm not too sure on how this reset is going to work. Obviously, we talked about it in the past, collapse the old, usher in the new. That's still definitely a possibility. Listen, the banking industry, in my opinion, is still on the edge. I think that that's why they are so concerned about capital flight. On top of that, liquidity itself, it's questionable on how things are going to really look a year from now. We know that the Fed has been injecting liquidity, which is going to cause even more inflation, which is going to cause even more debt as well. The system is broken. It's been broken for years. I've talked about since 2008. I really don't think that we improved at all. In fact, I think that we just flooded the system with dollars, trying to, throw gasoline onto the fire. So it's hard to say, but I would say, the best way to look at it in sense of how a reset would work, I would say, collapse the old, usher in the new. Everything is on chain, everything is tokenized, everything is digital, and we are living in a digital-based financial system. There's definitely pros and cons to it. I would argue that the control aspect, privacy, things like that, it's definitely a big concern, which is also why I said we need to make as much money as fast as possible. The best way to do that is by locking in on these utility-based networks, because I think that over the next 12, 24 months, a lot of these projects are going to go significantly higher. And I think that this is the year where we really start to see that become a reality as well. So far, it's been a good start to the year. Let's see if that continues. I'm really looking at it, and I think that it's going to. But we definitely are witnessing the new system here. We're starting to see the evolution of it. And Ripple, XRP, a lot of these utility-based networks, they are all a part of this future. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video.